Something that I learned is that racism is a big part to a lot of people, and I think that everybody should take racism a little bit more seriously.
I think one of my biggest takeaways of Stamped was that our leaders aren't always the best people, and they always have their benefits, but they also have their drawbacks and like the ways that they might abuse or misuse power.
Okay, I would say my biggest takeaway from the book Stamped was that no matter how hard we try, racism is always going to be around us, and that we always need to fight back against it if we have any hope of ridding ourselves of it.
One takeaway I have is that we're taught a lot of things, but they aren't necessarily true, and that we read this book for school and it totally was different from what we'd learned in the past.
One big takeaway for me from the book was that even though that the book was describing like different moments in time when racism was really big, it always came back to the fact that every person had a chance to do the right thing, but they didn't want to give up power and they didn't want to seem weak in front of the other people in their time periods.
Through this book, I learned that history could be learned in a different and fun way.
Okay, well, I did not know about the assimilationists, and hearing about them made sense to me that they would be different than antiracists, but it was good to learn more about them.
Something I found interesting in Stamped was the way they talked about Martin Luther King and how they described him differently as most people do.
One of my takeaways from Stamped is how greed has impacted racism from over the course of history and still to this day.
I just thought it was a really good book to help kids really talk about race and discover, those things that we really don't talk about because some people feel uncomfortable talking about it. And I thought it was a good book for that.
One of my biggest takeaways from Stamped is how prevalent racism is in our society and how prevalent it has been since the beginning.
Something that I learned is that there's so much to learn, and you can never know everything about racism in American history.
After parents read the book, I hope that they will understand that the people that they look up to, sometimes they will always have faults, and you just have to see if the faults are, or if the benefits of that person outnumber the faults that they have.
My hope is that they talk to their kids and they have a discussion so the kids understand it more, because if they don't have a conversation as me being a kid, I know that I won't necessarily take away as much as if I have a conversation.
I hope parents can identify common themes throughout the book and really understand them.
I hope that a parent reading the book knows not to keep the American history from their kids, because it might be hard to talk about, but it's really important that kids know about it so they don't miss out on things in the future.
I hope that parents can teach their kids that history is not always a bad thing, and it's good to learn about what happened, good or bad.
I think maybe it'll just help people realize that it's not wrong to talk about race, and we should, so we can improve these problems in America.
I hope that we can make it more normal to talk about it, and that parents can just talk about it and know that things aren't how they should be, but still talk about it and try to make them more as they should be.
Definitely that people can just see eye to eye and just hear and listen to each other's stories about it. It just helps a lot when people are just able to listen to each other.
I hope that they can see the world their kids live in, not just the world they live in, and that they can help their kids with the racism around us.
I hope that families learn a little bit more about race, because I feel like people think it's a bad thing to talk about it when it really shouldn't be, and I hope that they dig a little bit deeper.
My hope is that they, maybe if they're not as educated as, we all are, that they get more educated on what, on how big a discussion this is about race and, like, equality for every person, no matter what their skin it looks like, no matter who they are, what they are, that, like, every person means something to the world and every person should have the same options as every other person.